Hello, everyone, and welcome to the U.S. Center. My name is Tom DiLiberto. I'm a Master of Ceremony here, and I'm excited to introduce this event, the Subnational Leaders Supercharging Climate Action Across America. And introduce the moderator of this discussion, U.S. Special Representative for City and State Diplomacy, Ambassador Nina Hatchigan.
Hey everybody, welcome to the U.S. Center. So excited to see so many of you. And we are thrilled to share with you how great local leaders in the United States are supercharging climate action. So I'm the first representative for City and State Diplomacy for the State Department. And it has been great to collaborate with the 7 groups that are responsible for hosting this event today. The U.S. Climate Alliance, America is All In, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the Mississippi Rivers Cities and Towns Initiative, C40 Cities, Climate Mayors, and ICLEI. And a big thanks to my team as well, who's been sweating it out. The climate crisis demands an all of society and all of government approach. In the United States, the Inflation Reduction Act, the most historic climate legislation in U.S. history, is a major piece of the Biden administration's comprehensive approach to climate change. So our first panel is going to feature perspectives on how the IRA has helped local governments supercharge climate ambition and action. And our second discussion will highlight specific innovation from U.S. states, cities, and regions to show this multi-level effort in action. But first, it is my truly great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, John Podesta. John has been an integral player in the Biden-Harris administration's clean energy strategy, serving as the senior advisor for clean energy innovations and implementation to the president. And in this role, he oversees the IRA's energy and climate provisions, including its clean energy tax credits and incentives for state and local governments and private businesses. He chairs the White House National Climate Task Force. He has a wealth of expertise in climate policy thanks to a career that spanned 3 administrations. He served as a climate advisor to President Obama and as chief of staff to President Clinton when I first got to work with him or for him. And outside the White House, he founded the Center for American Progress, where he hired me at one point, along with chairing multiple climate organizations. He is one of the most phenomenally effective people I know, still manages to be a kind and funny person and a legendary cook. So please please join me in welcoming John Podesta.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Hatchigan. As she noted, we've been through 2 White Houses and 1 think tank together, so it's really fantastic that the State Department has brought her on to coordinate this role of working with subnational community across the world to really increase ambition and increase action with respect to climate change. She did it once, but I want to do it again because it's important. I want to thank the U.S. Climate Alliance, America is All In, Climate Mayors, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, ICLEI, C40 Cities, MRCTI, who I just met with, and everyone involved in today's event. It's great to be with you all here today. I'm here really with one particular important message, which is to say thank you. You've been leading the charge on climate change at the subnational level, often in a bipartisan way, for much longer than the Biden-Harris team has been in office. During the previous administration, of course, you showed the world that the majority of Americans remain committed to climate action, and you accelerated our progress by taking decisive steps to decarbonize the power sector, transportation, buildings, industry, agriculture, and forestry. You showed it could be done by laying blueprints in your states, in your cities, in your tribal nations and territories. You laid the groundwork for the passage of the largest climate investment in history. That was your work, so thank you again. The Inflation Reduction Act puts us on a path to achieve President Biden's goal of cutting carbon pollution by 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030, keeping the promise that this administration made to the world. It's projected to get us to an 80% clean power sector by 2030, according to the Department of Energy, and help us meet President Biden's goal of making half of new vehicle sales electric by that same year. And over the next 7 years, we expect twice as much wind, solar, and battery deployment as there would have been without passage of that law. The Inflation Reduction Act is government-enabled, but make no mistake, it's private sector-led, and it's already started and sparked a clean energy boom. Clean energy projects that have moved forward in the 15 months since the IRA passed have already created 210,000 jobs across the United States. The private sector has invested more than $266 billion in clean energy manufacturing, $133 billion in clean power utility scale deployment since President Biden came into office. And according to an analysis released this week by our Treasury Department, these new investments are mostly going to underserved communities. 81% are happening in counties with lower wages, lower than median wages, and 80% are going to places with lower household incomes. Clean energy investments have grown especially quickly in energy communities who powered our country for over a century. Let me underscore for our colleagues, particularly those from around the world, that targeting this investment to communities and workers was by design, not by happenstance. It's built into the Inflation Reduction Act. Once these investments take place, once jobs are created and factories built, once communities that were left out and left behind are brimming with new economic opportunity, that's very difficult to uproot. Make no mistake about that. The Inflation Reduction Act is creating lasting change, and that's a very good thing because we need it for the United States, and we need it for the world. It means that we're on a path to meeting our climate goals. It means we've sparked a virtuous cycle of innovation that's lowering costs for clean energy technologies and accelerating deployment around the world. And we're doing all of that in a way that prioritizes workers and communities so we can build not just a clean economy, but a clean, equitable energy economy. Getting this right is an imperative for our country and for the entire world, and that's why we need all of your help in implementation. Ambitious national policy is crucial, but its success will be determined in America's states, cities, towns, and tribal nations. So we need you to keep leading the way on innovative climate policies. We need you to take advantage of the historic opportunities available through the Inflation Reduction Act, from the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to launch community clean energy projects, to direct pay, which makes clean energy tax credits accessible to local governments and nonprofits for the first time. And we need your feedback and partnership so that together we can make the benefits of the IRA real for communities across the country and across the world. Thank you for everything you've done to make this moment possible, for road testing the policies that are embedded in this law that we're now trying to rapidly get going across the country. Now we need to make sure this law builds the clean, secure, prosperous energy future we all envision in the United States and around the world. As long as we work together, that future will be sooner than we can possibly imagine just standing here right today. Thank you for all you're doing, and I look forward to the panel.
It's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator of our first panel. Over decades of environmental and climate work inside and outside the government, Gina McCarthy has tirelessly promoted climate resiliency and stewardships in our communities, first as the Commissioner of Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, so she's subnational too, and later as an administrator for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency under President Obama. After serving as the president and CEO of the Natural Resources Defense Council, Gina was appointed by President Biden as the first ever White House climate advisor. Today, she serves as managing co-chair of America is All In. Gina, thank you so much for guiding this discussion.
As you can see, this is a team sport up here. But thank you, Ambassador, for the introduction. And thank you, John, always for your leadership and support. Look, I am here to admit to you very freely that I am an unabashed optimist when it comes to our ability to tackle climate change. I feel like that because I hang out with people like this. And you're going to hear from them because I think together we can act with the urgency that climate demands. And I think that change in the United States and every country always happens at the town and city level. It's one community at a time that understands they have a problem, grabs solutions, and then run with it. And that's what happens. Then a little while later, couple of centuries, the federal government catches up and they make it a rule. I love all that stuff. No, it is a team sport here after all, which is why I'm so excited to be co-chair and manager of the America's All-In campaign here with Mike Bloomberg. It's just great. So before I do anything else, I want to introduce the panelists and then we'll talk one at a time. So we can understand the challenges that they're facing, but even more importantly, the way in which they're facing them, the courage that they bring to the table. Because while change happens at the local level, it is the most difficult job you would ever want to have. Look, I can tell you, I've worked at the local level, I've worked at the state level for 6 different governors, I've worked for 2 different presidents. Man, it's a tough job. And they do it every day. So first, let me thank them for their work, but more importantly, let me introduce them. First, we have Mayor Toya Cantrell. She is the mayor of New Orleans, Louisiana. LaToya is an amazing human being. Wait till you hear her story. We have Melanie Nakagawa, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at Microsoft, and a great colleague from the White House as well. We have Mayor Andrew Ginther from Columbus, Ohio, where I was just there just a few months ago. And we have California Natural Resources Secretary Wade Crowfoot. Wade, thank you for being here. Look, Mayor, let me start with you because you got a lot to talk about. You got a lot to talk about because sometimes I feel like New Orleans is basically ground zero for so many difficult challenges, many of which are climate related. So I want to talk about, as an optimist, how have you looked at the sort of unprecedented opportunity that the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law has really provided to a city like yours?
Sure. Well, thank you all. It's really, really good to be here. Now, I'm telling you, courage, you said it right. Mm-hmm. But the city of New Orleans is absolutely on the front lines of climate. I say adaptation because climate, we know, has already changed. In southeast Louisiana, in which we are, we're losing a football field of water a day. Of course, at the city level, I've had to deal with not only hurricanes, but heat advisories. I had signed my first emergency declaration on heat. Tornadoes are coming our way. Saltwater intrusion just threatened our city as well. But all of this speaks to the real opportunity that we have on the ground, not only in New Orleans, but really throughout the United States of America. And so I've created a task force specifically around this investment act so that we know and we're prepared for projects to respond in real time. And as a result of that, we're seeing some results. $8 million here recently from the Office of Forestry, Urban Forestry Canopy, that will provide over 40,000 trees that we will plant. And again, I just mentioned signing that first emergency declaration for heat. This will go a long way. Absolutely, from flooding mitigation and the like. $4 million from EPA here recently in terms of recycling. But what's so unique about this program, we're moving towards an opt-out approach, meaning that everyone in the city will now have an opportunity to recycle and be provided not only 83,000 bins, but we're moving towards improving 73,000 households that did not recycle previously. That's a big win, especially when you talk about plastic pollutions and the like. 55 million our utility just received, again, to strengthen our grid distribution lines. Hurricane Ida that came our way 2 years ago, we lost power in our city for almost 3 weeks. 11 of our people died from heat exhaustion. So again, this is meeting people where they are and in real time. I have to mention even the 1.3 million in terms of restoring our wetlands. This is so vitally important in terms of creating the barriers from hurricanes coming our way. And even here recently, 250 million, oh my goodness, relative to the hubs for energy and resilience. One will be in the city of New Orleans. And you know that the world's greatest experts on where they live are the residents themselves. And when you talk about disasters coming your way, first responders are the residents themselves. So these hubs will be in communities, providing our residents with the resources that they need in real time. It's not a matter of if, it's when disaster comes. But we want to be prepared. We're using these dollars wisely, and this is the largest investment that we've seen in the history of the United States of America. So yes, we're all in. Woo!
Okay, the rest of you can quit now if you like. That was kind of a drop the mic opportunity for us. May, you really are an inspiration. And I can tell you how excited I am about the opportunities that you identified and grabbed. That is exactly why I'm an optimist and exactly why I think many of the people in your community are optimistic, because they have you as a leader.
Thank you for
So
that.
thank you so much. All right, Melanie, good luck. Melanie.
Can I go after Wade? That'd be great. You guys move my chair.
Melanie, you get to represent the entire private sector in the United States of America.
No pressure.
So get your long list of ways in which the IRA has helped the private sector. It would be great, really, if you did talk a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of private investment really being generated by this opportunity, as well as maybe give a hint about what AI has to do with anything.
No, this is great. And I think just to level set, what I think about this is we've got the imperative to act, we need the incentives to act, and we need the innovation to act. And if you think about it from that perspective, the imperative, wow, that's so abundantly clear. Go anywhere around this space, talk to anyone, you see all these stories about, from local to global, the imperative of climate change to take action today. So we have that in spades. So then you think about the incentives to act, and that's where the IRA comes into play. IRA sends us the policy signals that are needed to take, for companies like Microsoft, to take more ambitious action, to be able to put in place new partnerships, new initiatives to really seize the day. Let me make this clear. Here's an example. So earlier this year, Microsoft announced a partnership with Hanwha Q Cells. They are building in the state of Georgia a solar manufacturing facility incentivized by the IRA. We've decided to go further upstream to help reach our goals of two goals. One is we want to be carbon negative by 2030. That is a bold, ambitious goal. And part of that is to have 100% of our electrons, 100% of the time, powered by carbon-free sources of power, zero carbon sources of power. To do that, we need more solar coming online faster. We need our EPCs and product developers to get access to that. Given some of the challenges in the supply chain, we thought, let's go further upstream. Let's invest in the supply chain side of the house to then supply that to our developers to be able to bring on that clean energy system to power our data centers and other facilities. So that's an example of how those incentives actually translate down all the way down to the local. And then when it comes to the innovation to act, the examples you just gave, and I'm sure others will have it as well, part of that is the data. Where is the extreme heat coming from? Where are the fires coming from? And this is where I think technology companies in particular play a really unique role. Earlier this year, after the horrific fires in Maui, Microsoft was able to use our data with others to help first responders understand where the fires were, what type of damage was being caused by that, and really help get people out there faster. We're doing this on wildfires as well. How do you use data and technology to better understand where the fires are starting when they're smaller, get people out there to respond faster, increase wildfire resilience, and stop what is currently accounting for 7 gigatons of carbon dioxide is emitted from wildfires on an annual basis. So how do you have the innovation to get out in front of that? And you're nodding because this is something that's very important to you in particular. So I think this is really where I see this incredible opportunity. And then to your last point, Part of that wildfire work, part of this, first responder work, part of this, data aggregation piece, this is where AI comes into play. Earlier, we released a playbook that went through, Microsoft released, what is the playbook for how we use AI to accelerate sustainability solutions? We all know, if you look at the timeline, we have to move faster at the speed and scale. And we published this report to talk about how we see AI fast tracking this. And then lastly, back to the IRA to close out, when it comes to battery technologies, we recently invested in a company called Group 14, making a lithium silicon battery, and we're helping to commercialize the second version of this battery factory. This is another area where AI can provide an incredible resource to find even better battery technology out there, fast track that R&D so that the solutions we all need come in even faster. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to have a bit of the perspective here.
Melody, thanks to you. And to Microsoft. Decades ago, we used to say that information is power. Still is. So thank you for that. And to reiterate the commitment of the private sector, a recent analysis said that there was something in excess of $310 billion in investments that have already been announced. That's real progress. So thank you, Melanie. I want to turn to Mayor Ginther now, because I spent a little bit of time in Columbus, Ohio recently talking about the IRA, making sure people know how to access it. Can you help us all understand a little bit more about why this all-in approach is so important to you, Mayor, and to the community that you served? What's getting them excited, and what's the challenges?
Well, on behalf of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I currently serve as the Vice President. So on behalf of President Hillary Sheevey, I want to reiterate what Mayor Cantrell said, and that is we're all in. You've got mayors here today from Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia, Missouri. We brought all the Columbias with us. Lansing, Des Moines, Mesa, Arizona, obviously New Orleans, Columbus. We are all in because our folks and the people we work for are on the front lines of climate change. And we know that communities of color and poorer communities within our cities are facing the disproportionate negative impact of climate change. So this isn't just something that is theoretical. It is on the front lines in our job description, the work that we're doing. So the U.S. Conference of Mayors has a proud history and is committed to moving this forward. Because you're right, we are going to have to lead locally to get our states and our federal government to continue to step up. But we have to acknowledge the Inflation Reduction Act is the greatest legislative accomplishment and greatest set of investments and appropriations to fight climate change in American history, and we're grateful for the Biden administration and those that helped to get that done. It's really taken our climate action plan. We put it in place for the first time in the city's history. We've been able to expand and expedite historic investments in fighting climate change. A big focus for us has been renewable energy, and particularly solar energy. And so really taking our efforts to whole new heights and using public-private partnerships to expand solar energy and really having the people of Columbus be part of this, because we think there's an incredible future through investments in the Inflation Reduction Act that we can create a whole new green energy, renewable energy economy and put the very people who are facing the disproportionate negative impacts of climate change in the driver's seat for economic growth and prosperity through this new economy with renewable energy. So we're really excited about it, grateful for all the mayors that are here and the great work they're doing in cities throughout America.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for giving a general shout out to all the folks that are working really hard on these issues. Secretary Crowfoot, your turn. I know that California has been hard hit. I mean, we see it all the time. But I also know you're doing some remarkable work. I also know you're building coalitions like the U.S. Climate Alliance and other things. Talk a little bit about the importance of that kind of partnership.
Well, thanks, Gina. First of all, I'll say it's incredible to feel the energy in the room here, isn't it? And this is an energy that the American...
It's infectious, isn't it? Yeah, that's great.
And it's the American delegation bringing that energy under the Biden-Harris administration. And as we know, you're a veteran of COPs. It hasn't always been like this.
No.
So
right.
it's incredible to be here today. I'll tell you, I am excited and proud about what we're doing in California, and I'm also excited and proud about what's happening across our country in states. The U.S. Climate Alliance is a coalition of 25 governors from across the country, a bipartisan coalition representing about 55% of the American population, 60% of our national GDP. These are all states that are leaning forward on climate change. It's a team effort. While California is leading in some respects, we're following others. Hawaii, the first state in the union to adopt 100% clean energy. Maine, under Governor Mills, leading the way on decarbonizing homes. Governor Inslee, Governor Hochul, so many leaders across the country. And that's important. You may know that the U.S. Climate Alliance came together specifically at a COP like this to respond to the abandonment of the Trump administration from American commitment on climate change. And at that moment, it was critically important for local leaders, state leaders to stand up and say, America's still in. Because as we all know, if we're asking almost 200 countries to step up and make this challenging transition, and we don't do it as the most prosperous country in the world, it's not going to happen. So the U.S. Climate Alliance was really important during that period, and I'm really excited that these governors remain really important at this moment. It's hard to describe how important this sea change has been with President Biden getting elected and, of course, Vice President Harris, who will be here later today addressing the world. Not only did they bring a totally new mindset and a specific set of more aggressive climate targets, they also led the effort to get the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act passed. And that was critically important from where I sit for a couple of important reasons. One, it showed the world that America is putting its money where its mouth is. Right? The president led with strong targets, including a 100% clean energy target. And we backed it up with, our federal leaders backed it up with the funding to be able to do that. And I had the benefit of traveling to China recently and Australia, and you can bet that they watched closely how much the United States is investing in its transition. And it's providing a model for others to step up in a really, really powerful way. I'll tell you also that funding, that scale of funding, creatively deployed through grants and loans and tax credits, is funding these transitions that we know we need to make, whether it's in Louisiana or Columbus or California. In California, while we have a large economy and a big state budget, you can bet that the BIL and the IRA are absolutely necessary for us to meet our own strong climate targets. And that money matters, whether it's deployed through the Department of Energy or the Department of the Interior on the Colorado River or the USDA on wildfires. That's all touching the ground in ways that are transformational across California. I also respect the fact that the Biden-Harris administration is investing in those states where the political leadership is small-minded and is not leading on climate change. But the Americans living in those states shouldn't be punished for their state leadership. And so those investments are getting made in states that haven't led on climate change, and that those economic opportunities are developing there. So I think this is an incredible moment, and I think it's a moment we can't squander. We need to demonstrate to the world that we can actually turn this funding, turn this political alignment into real results that meet our Paris Agreement targets.
This is just an incredible panel. I'm glad that I unveiled my optimism because it seems like it's really carrying the day. Look, the thing that I really want to make clear, and I think you touched on this, is that the Inflation Reduction Act was specifically designed to make sure that red and blue states could both benefit. It was designed to get through the political rhetoric and talk about people, not just the planet, but the human beings that live here, and how to provide them a healthy, safe, and secure future. You know, Melanie, it's really important that the private sector engage in the way you're talking about. The $310 billion that have already been announced is going to both red and blue, with the majority of the investments heavily going to red states. Now, I don't need their leadership to stand up and applaud it. I just need them to get out of the way.
Amen.
That's all. Because this is about people, their choice, their health, their future, their kids, and their grandchildren. And you're here, all four of you, protecting the legacy of the United States and our ability to deliver that. So God bless you all. God bless the United States of America.
Amen.
I'd like to ask the panel to stand up for a group photo, for a family photo in front. Thank you.
In the meantime, let's have one more round of applause to our fantastic panel. Great things can happen when we gather brilliant leaders like yourselves in one place, and this is the kind of multi-level dialogue and collaboration we need to use the IRA and programs like it to help communities at home and all over the world. Our next discussion will focus on how U.S. states, cities, and communities are innovating to reduce greenhouse gases and make their communities more resilient. So I'm going to introduce our next moderator, who I hope is here, Ali Zaidi. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce him, and we'll hope he's back there. Okay, good. Ali is the White House National Climate Advisor and Vice Chair of the National Climate Task Force. Ali counsels the President on domestic climate change issues and coordinates efforts across the federal government to advance our climate initiatives. Under his leadership, Ali's office has helped to produce a new national target for cutting greenhouse gas emissions that you heard about, 50% or 52% before 2030. They provide crucial contributions to the IRA and bipartisan infrastructure law, another piece of historic legislation, and boost the overall U.S. climate leadership through executive action. Ali has an extensive background in climate and energy policy. During the Obama administration, he served first as the Deputy Director for Energy Policy for the Domestic Policy Council, and later as the Associate Director for National Resources, Energy, and Science at the Office of Management and Budget. He was also Deputy Secretary for Energy and Environment for the state of New York, so he also has the local bona fides, and a policy aide to U.S. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu. In addition to his work in the federal government and the state of New York, Ali is the founder of Lawyers for a Sustainable Economy Initiative, which provides pro bono legal services to sustainability-focused startups. So please welcome our distinguished moderator and our speakers for the next panel.
Let me just introduce our panel first. You can go right there, maybe. First, we've got really the ultimate and essential partner to so much of what we've done as an administration. Governor Lujan Grisham and I were just talking about how we stole some of their best ideas on methane and have been able to scale them up nationally. So very grateful to have Governor Lujan Grisham. Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we've got the mayor from Madison, Wisconsin, Mayor Rhodes Conway, who I recently we hosted at the White House. She's been such an incredible partner for us as we've thought about how to build resilience from the community level up. So we're very grateful to have you here, Mayor. From Greenville, Mississippi, we've got Mayor Eric Simmons, who has been just a tremendous partner. For those of you who know U.S. geography, you know how powerful the Mississippi is in terms of the impact it has throughout the entire country, helping us think through the impact of the Mississippi, how we manage the risks and the opportunities. The mayor's really been on the frontier of that. From Des Moines, Iowa, we've got Mayor Frank County, who really has, I think, folks know, I think, Iowa for wind, know Iowa for the solutions that it surfaced in the biofuels and the bioeconomy. But mayors really, I think, helped to bring a fuller conversation, including around resilience and adaptation, to the fore. We've been a grateful partner with him. Let's clap for him too. Yeah. And last but not least, Secretary of the Environment from the state of Maryland, Serena McElwain, who I've now, I'm always hanging out in Maryland. And, you know, one time it was, we're standing on the side of a street looking at how buildings are being retrofitted in a neighborhood in Baltimore. And then sometimes we're standing looking out to the shores thinking about how we repower our grid with offshore wind. So this is our panel. Let's give them a round of applause. All right. So we've talked a little bit, I think, in this room about the Inflation Reduction Act, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the hundreds of actions the Biden administration has taken from day one of the administration to fire up the most ambitious, most aggressive climate action centered around communities, centered around workers, centered around not just the work of reducing our emissions, but the work of lifting up our workers and communities that so often have been left out and left behind. This is the front line, not just of implementing these historic measures, but doing two other things. First, for inspiring them in the first place. This stuff didn't just come imagined out of whole cloth in 2021. We were the beneficiaries of work that had been done, in certain cases, for about a decade before we showed up. We were able to scale it up. And now, as we look out over the next several years in this decisive decade, this is the group that will help us do even more. So with that, let me first go to the governor and open up broadly. What is that ambition set look like for you? What is your counsel to everybody here as we think about tackling this challenge and tapping into the opportunity? What's got you most excited?
Well, Ollie, first I'm going to tell you, when you said the 100 years, I thought you were specifically referring to my work. And I'm happy that you weren't. But I'll tell you, this is going to sound overly simplistic. So the race that is required by everyone participating here now and all of these leaders is more than real and acute. But I'm feeling that same level of energy outside of what I think too many people feel is panic, is opportunity. And what the Biden and Harris administration has done has taken that fear away. And I'll put that in perspective. My first COP as someone in public service was 3 years ago. Never been. And while I was working in public health, I didn't have a direct segue, for whatever reason, into environmental policy. And there is a direct segue into environmental policy and work. And our first effort when I was elected in 2019 was to make sure that we close coal-fired plants and we decarbonize the utility sector, and we do that robustly, including rural electric co-ops, which most of the country said you can't include them. You have to include everyone. There's no one-offs. You got to do it all. So by 2045, that's the requirement. But you have a lot of displaced workers. And who are New Mexico's displaced workers? Some of the poorest workers in America. And in the particular region of the state, that's largely Navajo workers. So we're the first state, and I hope there are others and communities that are following. We put $40 million into transition for those individuals. And I didn't want it to be and no offense to anyone in the room, we're going to teach everyone to be coders.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what they're going to code on the Navajo Nation right there near that plant, but this was money that supports families directly. You take that worry about food on the table. Now we've got opportunity to create new, innovative workforces, and we have respect in that transition. So our money where our mouth is, including money to build a new economy, and that's exactly what's occurring. You fast forward now, and on Tuesday, we're going to tease out an incredible. I'm teasing it out right now. An incredible announcement about water, because we need a transition for transportation, agriculture, and the western part of the United States is going to have to do their fair share, and frankly even more, about water, which means the rest of the world, including where we are right here, can take another both partnership, leadership tool from the federal government and subnationals who are doing the work directly on the ground.
So good. So good. And I just want to underline those themes of creating economic opportunity where people live today. That localization has been core to the president's agenda, and I think such an important lesson. The way, and I want to keep chugging along here, but one of the things I have to lift up with your work with the Navajo Nation has been not just giving folks a job, and you talked about the dignity and respect that comes with it, but making sure that indigenous nations own the assets associated with the clean energy transition. The climate question is a question about power, and I don't just mean about electricity. It's about who has the power to drive the transformation, and I think New Mexico, in partnership with the Navajo Nation, is doing just an amazing job. Mayor, talk to us about what you're doing in Wisconsin. How does that map out in this context? Tell us, in particular, tell us about some of the resilience work you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I have to say a big thank you to everybody who organized the ambassador. Thank you. But a bigger thank you to the COP28 president and to Special Envoy Bloomberg for actually getting subnational leaders on the stage and in the zone. Because, as you have heard already, we're where the rubber meets the road. We're right the closest to the people, and there's some amazing work going on in cities. And it's really important for the folks that are at the national and international levels to learn and listen about what's happening at the local level. So in Madison, Wisconsin, we are doing, I think, really exciting work, and a lot of that is thanks to the work that the federal government has done with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. And I want to specifically thank the President and Vice President for their work there. It really would not be possible what we're doing in Madison. So we have a fleet of 900 vehicles. We just took it's a big fleet. We just took delivery on our 100th electric vehicle, so we're not there yet, but we're making progress. We are putting in a bus rapid transit, which will be all electric. That is entirely due to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Would not have done it otherwise. We have the first all-electric fire truck in North America. It's called the Volterra. You want one. And the rest of our heavy-duty vehicles are transitioning to biodiesel. So we're doing a lot of work there. We're doing, and I start with transportation because that's the source of emissions, right? And then the other one is buildings, right? And so we're trying to tackle both of the big things. And if I could just say one piece of advice for local leaders, let's not get wrapped up in micro-measuring every little bit of everything of carbon. You know where your emissions are coming from. Mm-hmm. Let's just do the work. Let's get it done. And we can take stock and count later, but we don't have any time left. So let's just do the work. So we're doing the work in transportation. We're thanks again to the federal government, doing work to create EV charging systems for the public's in the public sector, but also for the private sector. We're doing work on buildings, and the one thing I want to lift up on buildings, we've done 2 megawatts of solar on government property and 2 megawatts in the community and houses and affordable housing. But the one that I'm most excited about, we're working in naturally occurring affordable housing. This is unsubsidized affordable housing. And we are doing energy efficiency, water efficiency, indoor air quality improvement, and solar so that this housing stays affordable and is more healthy for the people that are living it. And that is thanks to the work of the federal government in providing us funds. Lots of exciting stuff.
No, that's so great. Governor pointed out the intersectionality between climate and public health. You pointed it out with housing security, economic opportunity, and I just want to underline on the transportation point, we got to get after those heavy-duty vehicles. This has to be not just a decisive decade to tackle climate pollution. We can get rid of diesel pollution once and forever. We should do that. Mayor, so you are tip of the spear, not just in Greenville, but really a regional approach in the Mississippi region. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I'm representing Greenville, Mississippi, but also as a past immediate co-chair of a group of mayors, 105 bipartisan mayors on the Mississippi River from Bemidji, Minnesota, the headwaters of the Mississippi, all the way down to American Trail, New Orleans, Louisiana, called Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiatives. 105 bipartisan mayors have come together to do local projects for the global good. And when we say global good, we got to understand that the Mississippi River is the world's largest food producing river basin. So we produce food for the planet. And so what goes to the Mississippi River goes food that we eat around the world. These group of mayors have come together to do nature-based infrastructure with a leading conservation in Ducks Unlimited. At COP27, we announced over 66,000 acres of farmland, wetland, marshes, nature-based infrastructure that sequester about 160,000 tons of carbon. Today, at COP28 in this room, we are announcing with Ducks Unlimited over 100,000 acres with 45 cities, 9 states, multi-level, that's going to sequester over 230,000 tons of carbon.
Yeah.
Now, Adi, what that does, it gets President Biden 30% closer to his non-power NDC goals and commitments. And I'm reminded by what we do as local leaders. I know Mayor Cottrell talked about the first responders. We talked about folks at the ground level and how we can do these projects to impact people. I'm a firm believer. If we strengthen individuals, we build stronger families, and that's how we help sustainable communities, and that's how we create a better world. But I'm reminded about this 4-year-old, Adi, who was bothering her father, who was trying to come over to Dubai at COP28 to make these big major announcements because the time for action is now. And so he gave her a 70,000 piece puzzle of the world. In less than 7 minutes, she had it together. He said, what did you do to put a 70,000 piece puzzle of the world together in less than 7 minutes? And she simply said, see, on the other side of the piece of the world was the man. And once the man is right, the world is right. And what that says for us is every last one of us in this room, local climate actors, subnational, but everyone needs to be in this fight. And once we get it together individually, we can make the world a better place for that 4-year-old. So thank you so much for your time.
Sounds like a smart kid. I think so often when we have environmental gatherings, we talk about nature as a thing we're going to protect. I think this announcement shows that nature can be the thing that protects us if we invest in it, if we're wise enough to lean into that set of solutions. From Des Moines, Iowa, Mayor, tell us about what you're growing out there, what we can learn from it.
What we're growing. Thank you very much. I've got to tell you, in all the mayors, we're all in this together. I got to tell you, when we started first fighting it from our local level, it's sort of like, hey, wait a minute. We're the implementers. We're where it happens. We're the people that see all the effects and the advantages or disadvantages with the actions you're talking about taking. You can be aspirational. We deliver actual actions. We're the ones that are going to be out there fighting. We're the ones that are going to be putting together renewable cities, renewable issues, because we serve our citizens every single day. The people in Washington, bless them, they get to get up there and they get to think. But I got to tell you, I've worked with governors and I've worked with legislators that actually. We had one that even was appointed mayor of Des Moines, and he says, "Holy smokes!" He said, "This is government in your face every day." He says, "I can't walk down the street or the grocery store or anyplace else without the citizens telling me what's going on." And that's what happens, and we need to listen to them. We need to help them. So in the city of Des Moines, we have a variety of things that we're doing, and partially through the benefit of federal incentives and ARPA and all the other things that are going on. We are putting up a new greenhouse facility and animal control facility. It's going to be next to a solar field that's going to generate over 1 megawatt of electric power and power the whole thing. Now, also, we're putting the solar array on an area that used to be a brownfield. Well, it wasn't worth a lot on anything else, so we're putting it there. But also, we decided to replant the area, and so that we could service pollinators. And so we have a lot of flowers and a lot of other things in and around this solar array that is going to benefit the city of Des Moines and agriculture and everything else around, the fruits, the vegetables, everything else. We think that's positive. We look at urban agriculture. It was said that Iowa is one of those places that feeds the world. Well, I got to tell you, all of you put up your hands if you eat number 2 yellow corn or soybeans every single day, and there's a few soybeans. We are working in the city of Des Moines to put out urban farms to serve fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, and work with the community to help them feed themselves with fresh food. There are those that are food insecure. There are those that, obviously low income, low whatever. We also are working with our residents to help them relook at their houses. So especially focused on low mod income homeowners that probably should retrofit their houses, put in new windows, new doors, hopefully solar heat pumps and air exchange pumps, make their houses and homes and residents safer on the interior and the air quality, and cut down on the use. We're using some federal funds to provide low interest loans, and sometimes we waive the interest altogether. We also are providing grants up to $10,000 to do it, and then also with the tax credits that come through federal programs, they can get, by those other investments, some additional tax credits that lowers the cost of them doing that. We're trying to look at all sectors of our community. I will also tell you that when we try to help our businesses grow and think about why they want to be in Des Moines, Iowa, and why they ought to grow and why they ought to love to live there, and what makes the city more exciting, more inviting, how can we work together? Well, I've got to tell you that we worked with one of our insurance companies in Des Moines. And I got to tell you, my staff was worried that I was going to chase them out of Des Moines, but I suggested that they ought to build to a LEED high standard. And so guess what? The CEO of the organization called me a few days afterwards and said, "Mayor, I looked at your suggestion, and we've made a business decision. I think you'll be proud of us." That's all. Hangs up, says, "I'll talk to you later." Well, when the building opened, it was the largest single owner, single occupant, LEED Platinum building in the world in Des Moines, Iowa. And we worked with them to help make it happen through a little bit of tax abatement, tax increment financing, and to do things, but to show and lead by example. We're doing the same thing with our city buildings. We're building everything and renovating to LEED standards, to lower energy costs, and to show the rest of the community. We at the local level can't ask our citizens to do things we're not willing to do ourselves. We have to step up, make it happen, and show them it can happen. And you know what? I had to quit talking. I've got 40 minutes worth of great stuff that I'd love to give you, but I know that we have some other things, and we've got a vice president that's coming on, so I'm going to be quiet here for a minute. So thank you,
Frank. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Let's give him a hand. I think one of the things I want to lift up about what Frank laid out is this critical element of asking the questions and pushing those individual decisions. You know, we've got a really interesting tax environment in the United States. The money's there. But if you actually look at the behavioral economics of how this plays out, we've got folks that just discount the value of saving money. And in certain cases, it's because the structure of the incentives are all wrong. But I think this is in particular where the front line of the sort of implementation mechanism, the mayors and to an extent the governors, can ask those questions and result in real shifts in where capital formation and project development are going. So really grateful for that example. Secretary, tell us about Maryland. What's going on? What can we learn from it?
Oh, I'm happy to. I know the next time not to go last, but now it's
still
my
got
time.
stuff.
No, because now it's my time to brag about Maryland. So in Maryland, we are doing so much. Our goals are even more aggressive than the national goal. The national goal is emission reduction 52% by 2030. The global is 45%. By 2030, and Maryland, our goal is 60% by 2031.
All right.
So, and we're not just coming up with a lofty number thinking, hey, let's just do better than the next state. It's not about that. We have a plan coming out at the end of this month. It's called the Climate Action Plan. Look it up on December 31st. And it is going to outline a very major strategy that we're going to use in order for us to meet those aggressive goals. We will do it. So we've done a lot. We've already reduced emissions by 30% since 2006. The way we've done that is we are a part of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is a variety of states together where we are capping and investing in the power. We're capping and investing the coal power plants in Maryland, and it's working. We've been able to generate over $1 billion in this program, and in terms of a just transition, we're taking the funds from that program, and we are helping low-income communities. We're helping with bill assistance. We're also taking the investments from that program and investing in renewable projects such as solar. So we are, as I say in my agency, we are rocking and rolling, and we are ready to get started and move even faster and making sure that we make a difference.
That's awesome. And you know, I think the scope and scale of the targets in Maryland are so exciting. One of the things that's so brilliant is the way you all are pursuing it. President Biden recently launched an initiative called the American Climate Corps to get young people pathways into clean energy jobs. Such an important initiative. Thank you. And, you know, Maryland, that notion of career pathways is something you can see if you literally drive down the street. Young people, whether they've got a high school diploma or not, college degree, doesn't really matter. We've got to make sure that the clean energy economy feels like a place everyone sees themselves and where there is belonging, because there's no way we're meeting the test of this moment without everybody on the field, and I think that's a big part of the Maryland way of doing business. Look, we are almost at time, so I'm going to just go very lightning speed, like 3 words. Thing that makes you the most hopeful about this work. We'll start from Maryland, we'll work this way, and then we'll be done in 40 seconds.
3 words. IRA.
Yeah, baby. All right. All right. Didn't even set that up. Frank.
I'm afraid I'm going to be 4 words, but I'm going to tell you we've got to work with all the private sector people as well, and we can help that happen. Our distributed energy provider in Iowa, we blocked them building more coal plants, all of them. And guess what's happening? We are 87% now all renewable energy, mostly wind, to my citizens, city of Des Moines, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Let's work together.
That's hope inspiring.
We're all in.
Yeah, baby. All right. Mayor.
I only need one: collaboration.
All right.
Yeah, I'll end with, I'm going to partner with Maryland. Free college, free child care, investments in early childhood. You want a future that people want to belong to? Get them into renewable energy, but make sure that you've got a pathway that serves all families wherever you are.
Woo! All right. Look, so often when we tell the story of climate change, we tell the story of gloom and doom. The wildfires, the skies turning orange, the smoke we're breathing into our lungs, the drought that's parching fields, the fury of the floods and the next hurricane. This panel shows you there's a lot of reason to be hopeful about the possibilities. Thanks so much.
Thank you once again to our panel. I'd please like to ask them to stand up for a family photo.